And there's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of these are the same if you're doing an a pop-up market somewhere, except for you have the added, I don't know if it's a burden or added um idea, like the added stress of having to display your work. So you have to figure that out. I used to do shows all the time in person, and I kind of, that's one thing that I let go. You get to a certain point and you can't do all the things anymore. So, that was one thing that I let go. And I still do in-person pop-ups every here and there. But definitely not like every season. I mean, sometimes it might be once a year or once every other year. I think the last one I did that was in person was in Georgia, and that was 2 years ago. So it's hard to believe. And that was a lot of fun, though. But it was actually a lot of fun because he asked me to do it and do demonstrations, and so I actually got paid for being there. So it was kind of like a no-brainer. Um, and they gave me a free booth to sell my work. So that I didn't mind. But what did happen to me, and I'll just tell you, this is one of the reasons why I stopped doing in-person shows, is you just cannot control the weather. It could start off as a beautiful day and end up things go south like right quick. I've had storms come up, even if it's not during the night. Like say you have a 2-day show and it rains during the night, you have to worry about your display blowing over. You have to worry about things getting wet. It's very stressful. And so in this case, it was a beautiful weekend. The weather was fine. But, well, I shouldn't say the weather was fine. It was beautiful sunny wise, and the warm, it was warm out. All those things are great, but it was very windy, and I had a corner booth from like a side street, and it was almost like I was in an alleyway, a wind tunnel, because when the wind blew, like I feel like my booth got the brunt of it just because of the location, and some other booths down the way were kind of blockaded or kind of they didn't have the same issue because they were further away from where the wind was coming from, and I had my whole booth fall over. And so my friends Angela and Jan were with me helping, and I'm like freaking out about all my work, and is it damaged, blah 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 blah, and then getting it reset, and this happened like right quick in the beginning of like the show. And so basically we spent all this time putting things together, making it look nice, and then boom, this wind hits. And my whole booth basically toppled over. The walls were like the paintings were falling off the walls just because they were on there though. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't like, shinsing on how I put the paintings on there. But the wind was just so strong. And yeah, that's happened to me more than once. And another reason why I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to go through the stress. I did end up doing really well for that show. I made a nice amount of money, but I also probably lost about $1,500 worth of product because of things getting damaged. I mean, even a couple of my demo pieces, they blew so hard, the wind blew so hard that it took my painting and it flew right into on top of this chair that I was using, like a director's chair. It's hard to imagine, but it blew it so it was punctured right from one of the I don't know if you can imagine this, like the way the director chairs, the little top parts where um the top fabric goes on. It kind of landed perfectly. It punctured the painting, and I actually was able to sell that painting for half price. I fixed it with modeling paste and some fabric, would you believe? So, you can, but again, I lost half the value on that. So I'm glad I was able to salvage it, but just stress. I will say that in-person shows like that are really great for marketing So if you're new to, selling your art or new to a location, it's not all about like what you sell on that day. A lot of it comes back to you over time. I mean, I've had customers, take classes from me, buy my book, show up at retreats, order things from me later. I've had other people like, galleries ask me to be into their gallery because they see, my work on the show. There's all sorts of really, neat things that can happen when you participate. So it's not all about the sales that you get that day or, um, during the weekend of the show. It could definitely pay off later on. And that's really the same thing for the in-person shows, like, or the online shows too, or in person, like that you're doing a gallery show, say, for example. You might not sell things right off the bat. So try not to judge yourself on what you actually sell. Like you may make customers that like maybe didn't even know about you and they happen to show up at the show. Maybe they're, customers of another person that was in the show. And then they discover your work and maybe they can't buy today, but you never know what, down the road, like if they might be able to purchase something down the road from you. So everything is a possibility. So it is about attitude too, talk with your clients, make conversations, don't try to oversell things, but, let them know, um, that you're open to doing custom work if you are. You can talk to them about, your process, your inspiration. People want to hear more than just like how much it is and what's the title. They want to know the thought process behind your work. And that makes a huge difference in, how if you connect with somebody. I mean, sometimes it's even your titles that might connect with somebody. I remember I did this one painting and it was like a lady walking on a tightrope. And it was kind of like an abstract image. And the name of it was Pivot. And actually I take that back. It was holding on by a wire. And it was about like how we can seemingly have everything together, but on the inside, we could really just be hanging on by a wire, by a thin thread that's keeping us together. And when I told that story, it really made an impact on this customer that was, following my work or had followed my work for a while. And it was that like little background information. I didn't say exactly all the, what was going on in my head, when I made that, but it definitely was part of my story, but it was enough to connect with that person to make the sale. So that is, it's super important to have at least a few stories that you can tell about your pieces. Not so much where you had to feel like you're filling the gaps for everybody, but enough to, bring the buyer in along on the journey. And it's something else I want to just share. Oh, the other part too is just details. So when you finish your work, you need to take pictures of what you have created. Also, I generally take at least 5 different images, like a front ones, crop one pieces or images, 2 side views, and then a close up. And of course, multiples, like as I'm doing that, because you never know, something like a picture may not work out like you think. But and then I also keep a spreadsheet inventory, and because if you're having an in-person show, you're going to want to, actually anything, you're going to want to make tags for your pieces. Either a lot of times, like the gallery will make tags for you, but if you're doing your own show, you may have to make your own tags, or if it's an online show, then you're just going to have to, create listings. But it's a lot easier if you have a way to kind of track your work. So, and then if it doesn't sell, you already have the benefit of having your pieces already photographed, ready to roll for some sort of online sale, perhaps, or a different, like in your Etsy shop, or Shopify, whatever you have. And you're kind of prepared for that. But I've learned a lesson many, many times over, and sometimes I've been bad about it, but I try not to let any piece leave my house without it being photographed. Um, you can lose opportunities that way, or even just for a prosperity. Like you want a record of what you've created. And, I've had people come back to me and like, wanted to use, some of the images of mine for different publications. And, unless I have a really good image of it, I can't necessarily, like may or may not be able to do it. So I just learned long ago, get a good image and you're golden. Trying to think if there's anything else. So I suppose that's a lot to think about right then and there. Again, it's going to be a lot different if you're doing an in-person show, like an art market. There's going to be other things you need to worry about, like point of sale, taxes, blah, 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 blah. And, working in different cities, you need to do, you want to get a place to stay that's not going to break the bank. If you have to go out of town, and sometimes traveling with friends helps that situation. Yeah, that's about all I can think of at the moment. Hopefully that helps kind of give some ideas on how you would at least start preparing for a show. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, mostly because it's hard to be and talk at the same time and not lose my place. But shows I have started off right in the beginning, and it's helped me kind of find my way as an artist. And even the deadline of trying to create a body of work by X time frame is really, is something that like has helped me stay focused and at the mission, like this needs to be done. I want to have a good showing. I want to have a couple of statement pieces. And I want to advertise and make the most of it. So it's really taught me a lot on just preparation. And I feel like it's helped me overall in many different ways. So give it a go. And if you don't have a show coming up, you know what? You can make your own show. Like, who's to stop you from running a place? You can run a place and, hype it up, maybe go in with a couple friends if you have somebody that, wouldn't mind doing that with you. And it's going to be a good experience for you no matter what happens. It's going to teach you a lot. And the bonus points are hopefully make some friends along the way, new customers potentially, and just actually, just build up your body of work. And it doesn't hurt to, find your way just through planning and creating. And if you're into it, selling your work. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed this little coffee chat, one of our last ones. And I'm just playing around with this piece. Don't know where exactly it's going, but I'm loving the body of this work coming together. And I've enjoyed immensely talking to you, chatting with you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And we will see you on the flip side. Thank you so much, everybody.